Welcome to the ADNA Presents. This is Roy Samuelson. Today we have Hannah. Jeez Louise. I was thinking about your last name. I have a friend named Hannah, and everyone called her Hannah this last weekend. And I'm like, she is not.
I used I used to live in Germany. They all called me Hannah.
Are you serious? Oh
Yep,
my gosh.
how they pronounced it.
Wow. Maybe I was with a bunch of German people then. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the ADNA Presents. This is Roy Samuelson. Today we have Hannah Waymouth. She is of Blind and Bored. I can't wait to have this interview. Thanks for joining us, Hannah.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this podcast.
Oh, this is great. I'm loving your content. Let's get going. What do you love about audio
Yeah.
description?
Oh man, how much time do you have?
This is
Like
one of those
what?
podcasts. We don't have a limit. So there's no like
Oh,
22 and a
okay,
half
cool.
minute limit. So we're good to go as long as you
Yeah,
want.
I'm not really sure what I don't love about audio description. It's everything. I mean, I can't watch anything without audio description nowadays. I just recently listened to the episode with Melody Goodspeed, and she said something so profound. It's like audio description brings you back into the conversation. And I love the way she put that because it's so true. And when I started losing my vision back in 2020, I didn't even know audio description existed. And I really thought that I couldn't, watch anything anymore. I thought I couldn't be a part of the conversation basically. And I didn't even know that that was a thing. And then when I discovered it, it was just a whole world opened up to me. And then I kind of felt dumb because apparently it's been around for a long time, but I didn't know about it. Yeah, it brought me back into the conversation and I was able to enjoy like new movies and new TV shows and everything. And there was still a lot of shows that did not have audio description, but then I sought out those particular things.
When you sought out audio description, I mean, obviously the first barrier was just knowledge, awareness of audio description, which
Mhm.
obviously once you figure that out, yay. The next step, was it as simple as how do you turn it on? Was that part of the obstacle there or?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I had to look up everything. So how do you turn it on? The first one I figured out was on Netflix, and I wanted to watch the show Lucifer. And then I saw that it had audio description. At the time, I still had some vision, and I was like, "What is this?" And so I clicked that. I turned it on. Like, what is audio description? And then so when it started, it was kind of jarring. It's difficult to get used to in the very beginning, but then once you get used to it, it's just amazing. And it took me like maybe a couple episodes. I was like, "Okay, I get the gist of what this is." And then I was finding myself like not having to look at the screen because when you start losing your vision, it's difficult, especially the process that I went through of like I still had a little bit of vision, like my right eye started going and then I was using all of my left eye and it was giving me headaches constantly because I was trying desperately to see every single thing that I could see
Mhm.
and I was getting headaches constantly. So then when I found the audio description on the show Lucifer, I was like not having to stare at the screen and I like still knew what was happening and I just thought that that was the most amazing thing ever. And now I'm at this point, I'm almost completely blind. I have about a pinhole left remaining in my left eye. So now I definitely can't watch anything without audio description. I need it. I love it.
If we go back to what you said about that first moment, that jarring experience where you get used to it. I myself, I'm sighted. And so the first time I turned on audio description, it was almost redundant. It's like, you're telling me what I'm already seeing. It's too much. I'm overwhelmed.
Yes.
Ah. And then, like
Yes,
you said, there was
exactly.
this adjustment that get to used to it. Was that within a few minutes? Was that like a few shows?
It took a few shows, and I think a lot of it is based on necessities. So just like you said, and I know when I've turned it on with anyone sighted around me, they have a hard time with it because yeah, it is redundant and like you're seeing everything that's happening. But I got more and more used to it, the less and less I could see. The more I allowed even when I still had vision, the more I allowed my eyes to relax and not sit there and try to focus on everything. It just seemed to flow. Like people that do audio description, they always say, you shouldn't notice me. You shouldn't notice my voice. I should blend into the background. And at first, I noticed it because I was not used to it. But then it just slowly turned into I didn't notice it anymore. And it was just telling me everything. And now I completely agree with that. They should just blend into the background. And when you notice them too much, it is then goes back to being a little jarring. Or when they don't say enough. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, and I'd love to get into that a little bit because right now it sounds like you're addressing the voice, that thing that may take you out if it's not done in a way that joins the story. And it's also, I'm imagining you're addressing the writing too, by either not having enough or maybe having too much, or maybe written in a way that just sounds really clunky. And and also the timing of how the words come in, whether it's in between lines of dialogue or if it's too soon, if you're laughing like faster than your kids do or after your kids
Oh,
do. That's
completely.
right, those
Yep.
kinds of all those elements too, but if I could go back just one more step before we get into those different roles. You use the word, relax and get into the flow, and I'm hearing another word that kind of includes those in the sense of trust. Once you allowed yourself to not give yourself a headache, forgive me, it's like
Mhm.
once you allowed the audio description to be there, you had to at least put yourself in some sort of position of trust that you're in good hands.
Yeah, definitely. And, and I have so much respect for the audio description writers and the people that perform it and everything. Because, and not to throw my friends and family under the bus, but like the average person, like really sucks at describing things. And, it's a thing you have to learn. It really is. And I can totally see that it's an art form. Because when I ask people to describe things, they just really have a hard time with it. And a lot of people, they don't understand what is relevant. They don't know when to say something. And I imagine that that is such a difficult thing to figure out. And again, like Melody had said, it's like a dance, it's a cadence. And I love that too, because it really is of trying to figure out where do you say the things, how much do you say, and it does take a lot of trust. Now, I mean, going blind in general takes a lot of trust. I mean, you have to give up a lot of trusting everyone around you to basically tell you what everything is happening. So it's just another level of that. And
Mm, mhm.
I feel like I've never heard an audio description that said too many things personally. I haven't heard really terrible audio description. I think the only negative thing I'd say is when I feel like they don't say enough. Or sometimes I think it's a volume thing, which that might be a little bit, in the editing process, I'm sure. Sometimes the audio description will be too quiet. And it's like I feel like they're trying too hard to be in the background to where they're too much in the background, if that makes sense. Um,
Sure.
that's like the sound is all together, so I'm like turning it up, and then the audio description is getting a little bit louder, but then all the other sounds are getting really loud, and all the dialogue is really loud, and I'm like, I can't hear what the audio descriptor is saying. That's probably the only time I've gotten like really frustrated with it.
Wonderful to hear that, and not a good thing to hear. It's like that frustration, it takes you out. That's yet another experience, and your perspective on just wanting to relish might be too strong of a word, but to know all the things that are going on. We've had a few
Mhm.
interviews with both sighted and blind people who watch audio description who have had this sense of it's too much. Let me enjoy the moment. Let me feel what's happening
Oh
and give
wow.
me that silence. Give me that ability to really absorb what just happened without being inundated with red shirts or, the color of their shoes. But I'm hearing what you say too, because there is this subjectivity of I want as much as possible. We've talked about the pictures
Mhm.
worth a thousand words. So good luck, audio description person. Let's get going. But it's
Exactly.
there's this other element of allowing the story to tell itself in those moments of silence, and I'm curious if you've had any experience on that side. I'm putting you on the spot here, topic.
No, yeah, I think that there might be a level of, I haven't been blind for very long. So I still feel I'm very new to all of this. So sometimes it might just be the stage that I'm at in my blindness and where I came from. I have always been a very visual person. I used to be a photographer. I had a photography business for about 13 years, and I used to be a painter. I think everything I took in was so visual, and I loved observing so many visual aspects to life. So it was very difficult to transition over to, okay, now you're no longer a sighted person. So now how are you going to take in the world? I love audio description that says more things because I was one to watch movies and appreciate the cinematography and appreciate the colors and the
Mm,
lighting
mhm.
and the theme. I cared about all of that so much, so that's how I took in movies personally. So maybe it's just me that I want as much information as possible. Tell me every single thing you possibly can, because I feel like my brain can absorb everything you're saying along with the dialogue, along with the music, along with the sounds. I want all of it. Give me everything. That's basically where I'm coming from, but I know that's probably not everybody's experience. And maybe further down the line when I've been blind for a longer time, maybe I more can appreciate those sounds and the silences and stuff like that and kind of take that in a different way. I don't know, maybe it's just the stage I'm at right now.
I love that you're addressing different stages, and I'm thinking about, Stephanie McCoy of Bold Blind Beauty. She borrowed from another quote that said, "If you've met one blind person, you've met one blind person." That everyone does have their
Yes.
own
Oh,
experience.
so true. That is so, so true. I would say there's three things that I kind of wish that all sighted people would think about. One is blind does not mean completely blind. A lot of people have varying degrees of blindness. And then number two is just because you're blind doesn't mean that you were born blind. So a lot of people have gone blind later in life. They've come from a sighted world to a blind world. That's a whole other thing. And then last is that the most detrimental thing, blind people don't care about some things. Well, if they can't see it, they don't care about it. I think that is the most detrimental thing that I think a lot of people think, because even somebody who was born blind has never seen something, they still care about everything. I wasn't born blind, so I can't speak for them, but I imagine I would still want to know everything. You living in a sighted world, we're living in a sighted world. It's not like we're unaware of that. And what
Mhm.
everybody talks about, visual aspects to things. I mean, we want to know about everything. And I'm coming from, I used to see and now I can't. I want to know everything because I remember what things look like. So yeah, I think a lot of people, have a lot of misconceptions about that. And also really the varying degrees of blindness. People say blind even if, you can still see somewhat, but people are not going to sit there and want to explain their level of blindness. So it's just easier to say blind. We're all blind. Blindness is a spectrum, as they say. But there's still some people they're like, well, if you can see, well, then you're not blind. You're just visually impaired or you're legally blind. Well, I'm just going to say I'm blind. And I've been saying that since I first started losing my vision. I've been saying I'm blind.
Mm, mhm. I'm glad you said that about the spectrum. That's, one of the things that I've been pivoting away from is the former expression, blind and low vision and going towards people on the blindness spectrum. That seems to
Mhm.
it opens up so many other options, and it gives that spectrum, obviously, the range, so
Well, I want to give you an example. I noticed because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I noticed that someone will describe something to a sighted person different than they'll describe it to a blind person. That
Really?
doesn't make sense to me. That's confusing.
Wow.
And it might be a unique perspective. I don't know. And it might be just my opinion. But I find that sighted people will describe things differently to other sighted people because they think about those things that that sighted person is going to care about. And for some reason, to a blind person, it's different. And that's what I don't like.
Wow.
So I think I would love if more, I'm not saying they don't already do it, but more like audio description writers take a moment and think about what if you were describing this to a sighted person? Would you do it any differently?
On that note also, and that as more blind professionals enter this audio description field, that those kinds of assumptions that sighted people bring to it, assuming
Hmm.
that, "Oh, this blind person only wants this," the assumptions that a
Hmm.
sighted person would bring, that as more blind professionals are included in this work, that those kinds of assumptions are frankly dismantled. Going back
Yeah,
to, no offense to your family or friends, it's like, I'm thinking about how audio description is a craft and a skill that's done
really,
to
really is. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm my own experience, going back to the dance analogy, the amount of gay men's feet that I've stepped on at country line dancing is innumerable. I should not be on the floor. It's very clear. And it's like when it comes to these experiences, it's like, I need training. I need to know 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, whatever, whatever I'm learning, I need to learn how to do the dance so I'm not stepping on everybody's feet.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I even say to my friends and family, like, you can't describe enough. I say that in anything we do, whether we're walking or anything. I love my 7-year-old. He will just start talking about anything that's happening around us. And I love it. May
Mm.
have been annoyed with that when I was sighted sometimes because it's like, okay, you can stop talking right now. But no, now I want him to say all the things. Yeah, tell me everything that's happening. I don't think I would ever tell anyone, okay, you're saying too many things. That's not in my vocabulary. I would never say that to anyone.
And if we could go back, I don't wanna throw your friends and family under the bus here. Let's talk about the experience with, watching audio description with them, that I'd imagine the connection that you have watching a show right now is you said at the very beginning that quoting melody back into the conversation, that I'd imagine that conversation, those speed bumps on the freeway as you're talking about something that had audio description, it kinda takes those out a little. It takes out those speed bumps so that you can have the conversation.
Yes, exactly. I don't like force my whole family to listen to the audio description. So I usually sync it up to my phone and I have like an earpiece. So we'll be watching the same thing and I'm just listening to the audio description version on my phone in my
Mm,
ear.
mhm, mhm.
But sometimes like my friends or family, they'll be like, "Oh, what did the audio description say for that? I'm curious." you know? And so then I'll relay what it said and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting." Or sometimes, which, it goes along with the timing and how I'm sure they have to write it and how they have to, figure out where to say certain things. Sometimes I'm kind of ahead of the game, which in the beginning I was a little annoyed about at times that I
Mm,
would know
mhm.
something is about to happen right before it happened. But when I thought about it more, if it came after, I would have been more upset about that because then everyone
Mm.
reacted to something and then I'm on a delay. So now I kind of see it as a positive of like, I feel like I have inside scoop on something.
Ah, uh-huh.
Like, oh, I know what's about to happen, and then everybody reacts and it was like, oh, I knew like a second before you guys. Or something like, I'm gonna use this is a weird example, but like in a movie, visually there'll be like an apple. Every now and then an apple is in the corner of the room. No one knows that there's anything relevant in this apple until the end of the movie. And then suddenly that apple is like a really important thing. Well,
Mm,
audio description will tell me every time that apple appears because it knows that it's relevant to the story. So now I have inside scoop that no one else knows because people are actually surprisingly unobservant and that I know more about this movie because the audio description told me some aspect that was relevant. I
nice.
find that really cool.
Yeah. With all the things that you've shared about audio description so far, it doesn't surprise me that you've incorporated those into your blind and board. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about where that idea came from and how you started and why you're doing it. Like, can you give us some background on blind and board?
Yeah, I started, like I said, I started losing my vision in 2020, which came with the inevitable bouts of depression and stuff. So I was going through
Mm-hmm.
that and I had a hard couple of years. But the beginning of 2023, I just decided it was my New Year's resolution. I'm going to pull myself out of this dark place and I'm going to just do the things. Think about something you want to do and just do it. Don't think twice about it. Don't be embarrassed by it. Just whatever you want to do. And then also, if somebody invites you out, just go do it. I had newly started using a cane and I was kind of adjusting to that and being embarrassed by it. But I was like, this year is going to be my year of yes, basically. So then I was like the end of January. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a YouTube channel and I'm just going to start making 30-second silly videos. They didn't initially start off only about being blind. I was just doing goofy stuff and in the very beginning. But every time I made a video about talking or joking about some aspect of being blind, one I talked about trying to find the toilet paper in the bathroom. If it's not where it's supposed to be, I'm like feeling around for it and I have no idea where it is. I got really good responses from it, even just my friends and family. And they were like, "Oh, I never thought about it like that." I felt like I was kind of using it as my own therapy, but also a way to help my friends and family connect to me. Because I mean, going blind is a learning process and it's a learning process for everyone around you too. Like, no one knows how to help you with this. And you don't even know how to tell people to help you, in the beginning. So I think I was using the videos as that. And I have a dark sense of humor, so I kind of take anything that I might be upset about, I'll spin it and make a joke out of it. So I was taking a lot of, those moments of like, I hurt myself or something and I want to sit down and cry, but no, let's make a joke out of it instead. Just over this past year, I've gotten really good responses from it and people saying that I was their laugh of the day and that means so much to me. And I've now had a lot of people specifically on TikTok. There's a lot of blind creators on TikTok and I have gotten an overwhelming response from people on there specifically saying that I was helping them through their vision loss. I couldn't believe that. I was like, I just started this just for fun and like my own therapy, but if I'm helping anyone, that's insane to me. That makes everything worthwhile.
That sharing that you're giving to other audiences of yours is also supporting you, like you had said about the original reason why you created and how you're
Mhm.
you're using that for your own benefit. This is a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and going blind can be very lonely and very isolating, and especially when you don't know anyone else that's blind around you in real life. It's really great to find a community. I'm on several Facebook groups and on the audio description group. And then having all these other blind people comment and say, "You're making me feel less alone." And I'm like, just you commenting that is making me feel less alone. So thank you
Wow.
so much.
The idea of connection comes up in almost every conversation in this podcast, and it's been exciting to hear how you've created your own connection there, just in what you said there about that, not addressing the loneliness, but actually sharing what you do and putting yourself out there in a way that other people can resonate with.
Yes, it's really, really special, and I've been really, really enjoying it. And the fact that anybody wants me to keep making videos, so anyone that says that, like, keep it up, keep doing it, I'm like, all right, if you're watching and you want me to do it, I'll keep doing it.
It's great.
But you know what? Sometimes I make sad ones. Like yesterday, I ran into a door and I got upset about it and I made a video about it and I was
Mm,
crying in the video. I just wanted to be honest because I have a lot of other blind people that follow me and we have bad days sometimes and I can laugh about it most of the time. Sometimes I'll cry about it, but sometimes I'm angry. Sometimes I'm mad. Sometimes I just want to punch something. Like it's the wide range of emotions that you feel and in vision loss in particular, or like going through the vision loss process, it's such grief, and there's all the stages of grief that you go through, but it doesn't end. There's always something that brings it back. You're going to keep having those emotions and having the bad day. And, yeah, yesterday I ran into a door and I cried, but I also wanted to scream. I also wanted to punch something. And that's just, it's normal feelings that you have to work through. But they're never gonna end, you just have to find your coping mechanism. So, like, usually mine is humor, but, every now and then you have a day where you don't want to. I literally will crawl back in bed and be like, "You know what? Not today. Not doing it today." But, every now and then you have a bad day, and I got so many comments. It was really, really wonderful. So, I really like connecting with, sighted people, non-sighted people. I'm just trying to either make people laugh or just, relatable, and we can talk about these things, and it's okay to talk about it, and that's basically what I'm trying to do.
I hear it, and the power of your vulnerability is shining through.
Thank you so much.
Let's bring it back to audio description. One of my favorite questions is, where do you see audio description headed? Do you have any thoughts?
I see it getting better and better and better. So even in just the past year and a half, 2 years that I have been consuming it, it has gotten significantly better. I feel like the more we talk about it, the more, honestly, even the more sighted people are interested in it. I've heard a lot of sighted people saying that they like listening to it because then they don't have to sit there and watch it. They could just listen to it, or they could literally listen to a movie during a car ride or something like that. And I think the more and more people are getting involved in it and want to listen to it, then it's just going to keep getting better. And I also had this idea. I don't know if this is a thing, and I think you had said it's a thing for theater, but I would love to see in the future, once basically everything has audio description, that there be an audio trailer, like an audio description trailer. And I don't mean the regular trailer with audio description. I mean a completely separate thing that basically describes maybe where the movie is set in, the time period, the theme of it, the color scheme, maybe something about the cinematography before I even start the movie. I would love that so much if I got just like a feel for what the movie is. And then also I could figure out if I even want to watch that movie just based on that description. This is a weird example, but or a dumb movie, but Twilight, I watched that when I could see. Twilight has the entire movie is blue, blue shades to everything. And then also it has a lot of weird 360 camera things. These are unique choices that the director decided to do for this. Well, I want to know about that, and these are things that a lot of times audio description do not say, and people I'm with don't even think about to mention. But I love those things. I want to know all of those things. And if I had like a audio thing before I even start the movie that gave me kind of the general idea of all of that stuff, not even have to go into crazy specifics, but it would just put me in that mindset of when I start the movie, I'd have this already in my brain. It will help me make the picture in my head, basically.
I'm going back to, way back in DVDs and director's commentary that this is kind of a callback to that kind of idea for, audio description.
Yeah. And again, you can't give me too much information. Give me all of the information. I want all of it. I appreciate it. Blind people are consumers as well. Oh, when we were talking before about the ads, that commercials don't have audio description. And this slight on blind people as if we are not consumers as well, as if we don't care about these things. But we do. We care about everything. We want to know the things too. We want to know all the things sighted people want to know, you know?
I'm thinking back to the SAG Awards, and they did feature a commercial for Tide Pods that had open audio description, and that was
Really?
that was a choice. It's like you said, it's not prominent, it's not as consistent, and I'm thinking with as more ads are coming into the streaming services, that's yet another opportunity since the foundation of audio description being turned on is already there. It's not that big of a leap.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it comes back to that last thing that I wish that more sighted people would think about is that just because we can't see it doesn't mean we don't care about it. We very much care about everything.
Love that quote. Thank you. When you said you want audio description to be better, can you be a little more specific about what better means for you? You've already addressed a handful of things, being more audio description and the idea of this the trailer that you pitched. Are there other aspects? And also what does better mean for you?
Um, besides the editing being making sure that it's not too quiet and the saying more things when there is, a long gap of something, um, that's an opportunity you could say more things. Um, I think the wording, and I'm sure this is just specific on certain writers and stuff like that. Sometimes the wording is a little odd. I think I was watching a Wednesday, and the audio description said, so Wednesday was like staring very intensely. And the audio description said, her eyes are burning. And I'm like, okay, coming from a sighted world and being sighted, I know what they mean by that because when I watched this, I could still see a bit and I could see that she was staring intensely. But I was like, you could have just said she's staring intensely. But using the term burning, if you have never seen before, I think that might be confusing to some people. If you've never heard that term, that's a visual term that somebody's staring intensely, their eyes are burning. And especially a show like Wednesday, her eyes could have been on fire for all we know. I mean, it's plausible in that show. Her eyes could have been glowing. I have no idea. And if somebody had never seen before, I imagine that wording would have been kind of confusing. And I'm sure this is the very difficult aspect of writing audio description is that you have to find what words to use that you want to cover the people that have seen before that would know what that is, but then there's the people who would not even understand what that term means possibly. Oh, and I also love it when they describe facial expressions, because it's like those are some of the things that I really miss seeing is that sometimes there's nuance in somebody's facial expression and you can kind of tell the way that they say something or they might say it a little sarcastic, but sometimes it's just a look. It's a look, it's a weird, and sometimes audio description won't include that. Like again, subjective, like some people don't find that to be relevant, but especially when it comes to humor, God, I find everything relevant. It's all relevant to every facial expression, every single thing to me is relevant because it's part of the humor, it's part of everything. So I do wish that more audio description writers would include more of those kinds of things, and I'm sure it probably makes them have to pay a lot more attention to what they're doing or what they're writing about because there's only so much obviously you can describe. I do get that, but I do always appreciate whenever I heard an AD person include any kind of facial expressions that anyone makes. I always really appreciate it.
Nice. Shout out to the 80 writers.
Yeah, I imagine it's a very hard job, but you guys do great work.
How can we follow you specifically?
If you want to follow me, I'm on all the social media stuff. I have a YouTube channel that is Hannah is Blind and Bored. I'm pretty sure the link is just YouTube/Blind and Bored. You can find me on anything if you just type in Blind and Bored. On TikTok, I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. I have Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Sorry, but I don't have a lot of followers on that one. But yeah, I'd probably say YouTube and TikTok is probably the easiest to find me, and you'll see all of my videos that I've posted from the beginning of the year to now.
Thanks so much for joining us, Hannah.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Same.